Chapter 7. Oh, there you are. Ooh, this is a good chapter. This is a good one. Chapter framework. Old belief before untherapy. Life is a game of chance controlled by the most powerful men in the room. I am at the mercy of my circumstances, which usually means life is hard and I am miserable. When good things happen, I am only allowed to accept them if someone outside myself, God or a man, gives me permission. The untherapy perspective. We are each the main character of our own unique life. This is equally true for every human. Life is meant to be enjoyed. As we intentionally release our fearful need to force and control outcomes, we can trust that our best choices will lead us to what we most desire. Even when we are in active resistance against the divine, we are still being met with opportunities to heal, learn, and evolve. What we most need and want is constantly finding us. The quote for this chapter is, "To be fully seen by somebody then and be loved anyhow. This is a human offering that can border on miraculous." And that is a quote by Elizabeth Gilbert. Oh, this is a big one. Brad and I are camped out in the main room where we have a good view of any new arrivals. There's a hubbub as a woman enters, encircled by a group of doting admirers. She is older, tall, and mildly overweight, with dark hair and eyes. Despite her plain appearance, she carries herself like she's queen of the world. These men are fawning over her, vying for her attention. You can smell the testosterone from here. She settles into a spot of her liking while one of the men in her entourage slumps in a nearby chair, unceremoniously facing away from her. He pulls his baseball cap low over his eyes as if preparing for a mid-afternoon siesta. I'm struck by the juxtaposition of these two figures and decide he must have happened in at the same time as this group, but surely isn't related to it. Brad's eyes gleam as his gaze rests on his prey. He turns to me, his voice dripping with desire. "I want her." Really? I don't say it out loud, but this woman looks like the opposite of the young, thin, fresh-faced beauty he normally selects. I know better than to question or hesitate, so without delay, I part the sea of leering eyes and approach the queen. Her name is Karen, and she's here with her husband. She motions toward the disinterested napper. "Wait, he's your husband?" My voice sounds more incredulous than I had planned. "Oh, he's just tired," she responds dismissively. I look around at the 4 other men panting at her feet. What is it with this woman? Never mind that now. I introduce her to Brad and immediately recognize the mutual attraction. Bingo. I allow a silent sigh of relief. My night is saved. I reach for my husband's hand, rousing him from his stupor I reach for her husband's hand, rousing him from his stupor, and ask him to help me clear a private room. He complies with what feels like genuine support. Once we've emptied the room, I thank him, and he turns to leave. "Wait," I insist, "this room is for us." His baffled expression quickly morphs into excitement as Brad and Karen push past us to claim the bed. Husband and I gladly take the couch with an unspoken understanding that our spouses are the complicated ones. His name is Tom, and we tentatively arrange ourselves on the couch. I notice that Brad and Karen are kissing. I feel a surge of excitement. He is so distracted by this woman, I sense a rare moment of freedom for myself. After a bit of maneuvering, I'm able to balance on the narrow couch facing Tom straddling his lap. With the muffled, happy sounds of our spouses in the background, our eyes meet for the first time. I'm struck with an overwhelming desire to kiss him. It's against the rules. I feel myself succumbing to the irresistible urge. I glance over my shoulder to ensure Brad's attention is consumed by Karen, and then I go for it. The instant our lips meet, I feel a surge of energy as a jolt of electricity passes between us. I draw back in surprise. "Oh, there you are." The words fall out of my mouth before I know what I'm saying. His crystal blue eyes return my gaze with a knowing look. We kiss again and again. For a moment, I forget about real life. There is no pain, no fear, no getting beat up for incorrectly plating my husband's dinner. There is only this moment of absolute perfection. There is a knock at the door. Another couple wants to join. I shoot daggers in the direction of the bed, praying they will choose privacy. No such luck. Karen invites them in, quickly decides they aren't what she hoped for, and at Brad's suggestion of Annalisa will take care of them, passes them off to me. As I entertain the husband, Tom sits to my left watching. I don't want to do this right now. I reach for Tom's hand. He takes mine and squeezes it reassuringly. Soon the wife is jealous enough to shut down their night. The moment they leave, I sink back into Tom. By the time Brad and Karen have had their fill, I am smitten. Tom has handled my body with a level of care and respect that I cannot fathom. Brad is uncharacteristically preoccupied with Karen, creating enough space for me to have a moment of privacy with Tom. He wraps his arms around me, buries his head in my hair, and whispers, "Thank you. I'm not usually this aggressive. I hope I didn't overstep your boundaries." I breathe deeply and lock this moment into my permanent memory bank. It is a feeling I want to remember forever. On the car ride home, I nervously attempt to conceal my excitement. I cannot unfeel what I felt. I cannot unknow what I now know. Someone saw me for who I am. Someone saw me. Myself has spontaneously expanded to a new, larger size that doesn't fit in the previous container. With a sense of foreboding, I scan my repertoire of survival skills. Nothing. Blessedly, I quickly realize there's no need to worry yet. Brad is so taken with Karen. She is all he can talk about. Her touch, her voice, her breasts, her moves. I remember the doting entourage that arrived with her. Whatever drug she's passing out, apparently my husband has taken a dose. I'm careful to conceal my disdain, but I really don't get it. She's so plain. A pang of jealousy sears my heart. With all the effort I put forth to please him, he goes for someone like that? Before I can descend into further frustration, I am placated by my own afterglow. When Brad forgets to ask me how my night went, I breathe an audible sigh of relief. This has never happened before. For the first time, I have space to process my own thoughts and feelings without being required to expose every minute detail to Brad's hypercritical eye. I am aware that I've dodged the ultimate bullet. Once we are home and I've provided the obligatory post-sex club sex, I lie next to my snoring husband, wide awake. Part of me feels like I already know Tom, like I've always known him. I remind myself that this will never happen again. There's no point being open with Brad about it. I'll only get myself beaten. It's not lying. It's just omission of irrelevant details. Next time there will be a new couple. It was nice while it lasted, but it's out of my hands and it's over. Back to reality. I decide I will allow myself to keep this one pleasant memory in the sea of misery that is my normal life. I deserve that much. The next day, when Brad suggests we call Tom and Karen to arrange another meeting, I feign apathy. I pray that I've concealed the thrill of excitement that jolted through my body the moment he mentioned it. They come over after the kids are asleep, and the four of us share our king-size bed. As so many times before, I engage in sex with another man while my own husband lies inches from me, consumed with this man's wife. But this is not like other times. This feels good. I find myself lost in the moment again and again. My efforts to remain vigilant and facilitate Brad's pleasure become futile as I am swept away in the pleasure and connection I feel with Tom. Over and over, my body responds with waves of rolling orgasm I didn't realize I was even capable of. I decide that since I don't have words for these inexplicable feelings, I am not required to articulate them to Brad later. I justify my behavior by reminding myself that I am not hiding anything. I'm out here in the open, in plain sight. Anything Brad wants to know is right there for him to observe. Tom and Karen start coming over any evening they are available. I'm relieved and reassured when Brad does not focus on my actions, but instead continues to fall deeper under the spell that Karen has cast upon him. Even calling Tom to arrange our meetings leaves me weak in the knees. One time, we decide to count how many times we can have sex in a row. We stop at 19, not because we're done, but because Brad and Karen decide we are too much and demand that we take a break. Within a few weeks, Tom and I have dragged an extra twin mattress into the bathroom to give Brad and Karen some privacy. Then we move it to the back porch. After a month, we are swapping houses. As soon as the kids are down for the night, I head to Tom's house while Karen heads to mine. I still feel a profound sense of loyalty to my marriage, and I vow to honestly answer any questions Brad asks about my experiences with Tom, provided I can find the words for them. He is none the wiser, caught up in the delights of his new conquest. I am grateful beyond words for every chance to be with Tom. I always treat it as if it was my last. Sex with Tom is easy, fun, pleasurable, consensual, and mutually gratifying. These are all new experiences for me, and I consider them a rare gift that just might be God's reward for all my years of hard work. As a bonus, Brad hits me less frequently and more intentionally. We are pretty much limited to blows to the head since these bruises can't be seen. Sometimes I still need to be put back in my place, but we can't have Tom and Karen finding out our little secret. By now, Brad has thoroughly convinced me that all husbands beat their wives. It's part of the role they are supposed to play as the dominant partner. It's just one of those grown-up secrets no one talks about. After 4 months of swapping like this, Tom and Karen reveal that they've decided to get a divorce. It's strictly for financial reasons, and it's been coming for a while. They've been trying to make it work for over 15 years, but she simply can't handle the insecurity of being married to a self-employed spouse. He started a drywall and paint contracting business right out of high school and has never worked for anyone else. She has a stable income as a high-level manager at an insurance company. Tom offhandedly remarks that she wouldn't even have that job if he hadn't paid to put her through school. Either way, it means our relationship with Tom and Karen is over. There simply isn't a way to maintain the sanctity of our marriage and the extra level of trust and communication necessary on all sides when the other couple is no longer together. I am devastated, but I suck it up hard and pretend it's no big deal. I knew going in that I had no control over how long this would last. Brad acts devastated, and I'm overcome with the urge to mock his heartbreak. I barely manage to reel myself in, but I placate him by bringing home a new couple for us. They are underwhelming. I mentally flog myself for having gotten so attached to Tom. 2 weeks have passed when late on a Tuesday afternoon, I get a random phone call from Tom. This used to be par for the course. He and I were the ones who coordinated all the liaisons. But all that is behind us now. I'm expecting Brad home from work any moment, and I'm nervous to get off the phone quickly before he catches me in an unauthorized conversation. Tom's voice sounds both confident and incredulous. I'm helping Karen move into her new house today. I've dropped off the last load, and guess who just pulled up with their overnight bag? I'm so confused. Why is he calling, and how would I know who's showing up at Karen's new house tonight? His voice brings me back to the moment. It's Brad. Brad is here. I think he's planning on staying with her. I drop the phone. Once again, I am falling. But just before I hit the ground, something inside me surges me back into an upright position. I can feel my blood boiling through my veins as I dial Brad's number. Where are you? I demand. This is the first time I have ever called him out. It feels foreign to vocalize emotions to him. His voice sounds uncertain, almost pleading. I'm going to stay with Karen. You just keep the house and the kids in order. I will be around some. You want me to wait for you? I'm gobsmacked. After a brief pause, it hits me. You're scared of her, aren't you? You are more afraid of losing her than of losing me. I've poked the bear, and rather than scared, I feel indignant. How dare he, after all I've done for him? I am not afraid of any woman, comes his angry retort. Just be a good wife and we won't have any problems. Come home now or don't come home at all. The ultimatum shoots out of my mouth like a bullet from a gun. I don't wait for him to respond. I hang up the phone, sit on the couch, and wait. I wait all night, watching the front door. I fluctuate between blessed relief, does this mean I could actually get a break? And exquisite resentment. Is this my reward for a life of endless torture? The enduring hope that had always faithfully appeared when I hit rock bottom seems to taunt me with enervating clarity. He will never change. And you just wasted the best years of your life in a dead-end project that was doomed for failure before it ever started. I'm pretty sure God just died. The next day, Tom asks to come over. He has never met my kids, and I don't know how to address their dad's absence, so I tell him to come after bedtime. We sit on the front porch to talk. After about an hour, a local police officer shows up to kick Tom off the property. There has been a complaint from the owner of the home, even though the house is also in my name, so he is no longer allowed on the premises under threat of criminal trespass charges. Tom and I move our lawn chairs to the driveway of the vacant house across the street and continue our conversation. I am talking to Tom, really talking for the first time. Even though I've been sharing my body with him for months, it was always in the context of swinging. I was always Brad's wife who had sex with Tom, ostensibly so Brad and Karen could have their time together. I was ever vigilant to keep things superficial, and although Tom shared his own life details freely and openly, I was careful never to reveal anything that would cast Brad or our marriage in a negative light. Now I am something else. I belong to no one. I float in an in-between that is both exhilarating and terrifying. Who sets my rules? How do I keep myself in line? What am I allowed to feel and think? Who is my God? The last time I had this feeling was the brief window of freedom when I left home for college at 17. At 30 years old, I don't even trust myself enough to order my own meal at a restaurant. I am a total stranger in my own life. After just a few nights of sitting with Tom in the driveway across the street, my fabric of tightly held beliefs is beginning to unravel. I still haven't told him the secrets of my marriage, but I have been shocked at his level of emotional intelligence and ability to predict behavior. Tom tells me how this whole breakup is going to go down. As he explains Karen's patterns and guesses at Brad's responses, he hits the nail on the head again and again. Without either of us realizing what is happening, Tom's insight is systematically dismantling a lifetime of carefully constructed rules. I clung to these rules like my very life depended on it. Don't talk back, don't say no, don't think for yourself, don't hesitate, don't question. Fear Brad like you fear God. Listening to Tom share his faith in divine power, I wonder for the first time if maybe God doesn't hate me. What if I didn't have to spend my entire existence trying to prove that I am worthy of whatever shred of love Jesus might spare for my despicable soul today? What if I, as a woman, am not in fact a lesser being who requires constant abuse just to stay in line? What if I could like myself the way Tom likes himself? He doesn't make it look dangerous. From this perspective, I begin to see the absurd nature of my own thoughts. Nothing is sacred, not my marriage, not Brad's behavior, not my carefully curated words and actions. My years of Herculean effort pile up in useless ruin against the hope that they would someday magically be rewarded with a spontaneous miracle of happily ever after. The following weekend, I'm ready to introduce Tom to my kids. He's a genuine friend now, and I want to be able to spend time with him beyond our late night lawn chair conversations. Gideon is now 9, Hannah is 7, Luke is 5, and Ella is 3. We take them to a nearby McDonald's and they happily consume fries and milkshakes while running back and forth to the playscape. I'm halfway through my burger when the scene becomes too much for me. Here's this man, being a friend, sharing life with me, and he isn't asking me for anything. He hasn't even mentioned sex or so much as made a pass at me since we've been talking. He's joking with my kids, genuinely enjoying their delight at the unexpected outing, and it's all way too overwhelmingly perfect. I can't do this. There must be a catch. The other shoe is about to drop, and my frayed nervous system cannot withstand another betrayal. I feel my body falling as I launch into a full-blown panic attack. I'm usually pretty successful at controlling them, but this one has caught me with my guard down. I brace myself against the edge of the table while I gasp for air. Tom gently pats my back while reassuring the kids. Once I am calm enough to speak, I launch into a self-deprecating diatribe. I apologize for ruining our outing, for my weakness, for my existence. I pause for a breath, not knowing what to expect. I've never lost my head around him before. Tom puts his hand reassuringly on my arm, gazes into my eyes, and says firmly, "If this is your way of trying to get rid of me, you need to just be honest with me. If you don't want me to be here, I'll go, but I will not tolerate you beating yourself up like this. You need to decide which it will be, right now." I am speechless. I'm not even sure what those words mean, but I know I don't want him to go. Backed into a corner with nothing left to lose, I slowly reply, "I think I need to tell you something." I take a deep breath and continue. I was the one who replaced the toilet. A couple months prior, when we were in the thick of our full swap arrangements, I had asked Tom for advice on how to replace a toilet. I told him Brad had prompted me to ask because the toilet in the kids' bathroom had started leaking. The truth was, it had been leaking for over a year and it was getting unmanageable. Knowing Tom's construction background, I had concocted the idea of asking for his advice under the guise of getting the info for Brad. Brad was always prideful about being perceived as the man of the house, so I had to do all the house maintenance in secret. I would mow the lawn quickly during the workday so the neighbors wouldn't notice, fix the roof under the cover of night, and replace the toilet while giving him full credit. Once I began telling Tom the truth about my life, I can't stop. As I pick up momentum, jumping from one shocking revelation to another, I know two things with absolute certainty. One, it feels amazing to be honest. And two, this is the last conversation I will ever have with Tom. No way he's recovering from this. One story rolls into another, each more exposing than the last. I start with the inside scoop on events Tom experienced since we met. He feels justified to finally have proof of what he had begun to suspect. Something wasn't right in our marriage. With his encouragement, I continue reaching deeper into the shameful places I've never revealed to another living soul. With each confession, I know I am severing any ties I could possibly have with this man in the future. But the pressure of years of unspoken secrets has taken over. They escape in dark clusters like swarms of bats stirred from their resting place deep in a hidden cave. It's beyond my control to stop them. I string the stories together with, "There's so much more," and oh, it gets way worse. Tom nods encouragingly, utters a periodic wow, and swallows hard at each new revelation. Apart from a few short pauses to handle the kids, we spent the next 13 hours in a confessional of epic proportion. By now it is 1 a.m. and we're in my bedroom. With the last words of the last story uttered, I sink to the floor in sheer exhaustion. And now you know everything. That's all the secrets I've never told anyone. I bow my head, feeling only the absence of feeling as I wait for Tom to leave. He gathers me up in his muscular arms and helps me to the bed, sitting down beside me and gently taking my hand. "I think it's time for me to share my faith with you," he says. A brief description of his spiritual understanding introduces me to the foreign concept of grace and forgiveness by a divine power who isn't angry or vindictive. He leads me in what he calls the sinner's prayer, which, despite the scary name, feels more like a metaphysical release of a lifetime of burden. And then, without effort or strain, I initiate the most gratifying, present in my body sex of my entire life. As we lie in the afterglow, bodies wrapped into one being, a solitary thought floats luxuriously across my blissful mind. So this is what all the fuss is about. If you feel like your life is just a random string of chance happenings, some good but mostly bad, may I strongly suggest that you download the study guide for Chapter 7. In it, you will find ways to connect with the true nature of life and the divine. I am confident you will come away from this work with a renewed sense of optimism about your future. Find it at theuntherapist.com/Chapter 7. Chapter 8, Space to Heal. Chapter Framework, Old Belief Before Untherapy. Sometimes you get lucky and situations or people temporarily rescue you from your misery. When life gets too easy, just wait. The other shoe is sure to drop. There's always a catch. People only love me for how much I can help them. I am a failure. I am incompetent. I do not deserve to be happy. Fun and ease are confusing traps that must be navigated with even greater care than struggle and striving. The Untherapy perspective. Desire is proof of deserve. When we want something, we can recognize that this desire is directly connected to the ideal next steps for us. If we acknowledge our desires and pursue them with intention and consistency, we can release our attachment to specific outcomes, knowing that innate course corrections will continue to perfect our path toward a more gratifying life. The supportive nature of life continually brings us opportunities and relationships that are meant to help us heal, grow, and thrive. The more we lean into this truth, the more our reality will reflect this supportive paradigm. And here's the quote for this chapter. The only meaningful thing we can offer one another is love, not advice, not questions about our choices, not suggestions for the future, just love. Glennon Doyle. I wake up the next morning to a shifted consciousness. As I open my eyes and snuggle deeper into Tom's arms, I am overwhelmed with a deep longing to make him happy. The void that was left by releasing so much shame all at once gives me entirely too much space for my own comfort. I must fill it by doing something helpful. As I get up to make Tom a cup of coffee, I am gripped with fear that Brad is spying on me. Has he been watching the house? Will he call the cops again when he sees Tom's truck parked out front? I push the thought away for a moment. I bring Tom his coffee in bed, and as he rouses himself to sit up, I notice tears forming in his eyes. I frantically search my mind for what I've done wrong. Is it the cup? Did he want cream? Sugar? Thank you. His voice catches with through his tears. In all my years of being married, my wife never brought me a drink, not even a glass of water when I was sick. Thank you. My panic is replaced with a rush of relief. Wow, I tell myself, this is going to be easy. That night, after he's home from work, Tom and I discuss plans for the future. He tells me he doesn't want me to feel any pressure to decide one way or another, but he's thought it through. I don't want to date around or waste time on anyone else. I want you. Do whatever you want with that. A new feeling of floating in the great unknown of cosmic possibilities has captured my imagination. I am untethered from the past with all its rules that kept me small and fearful. I allow myself to daydream about a life with Tom, a life where I am wanted, cherished, and valued. It feels way too good to be true, and yet here he is, holding me, talking to me, seeing me, wanting me, choosing me. What do I want? He keeps asking. He keeps saying, no pressure. I want you to do what you want. I would rather your answer be a no than for you to do something you don't want to do. I am unsure what he means by this. It is an altogether new concept, but there is a tangible sense of freedom in the idea. He confesses his worst fear. By the end of his marriage to Karen, their connection was so toxic that he had become verbally abusive. I don't think I would ever treat you like that, but it became almost a habit for me, he explains. I want you to know that up front. I want you to know up front that as careful as I want to be, there is a chance I might do it to you. But you won't hit me, right? I quickly counter. No, I'm absolutely sure I would never hit you. If I had that in me, I would have done it to Karen, and I never did. Great, comes my lighthearted reply. I can totally handle verbal abuse. That's easy. We talk about the kids. His only son with Karen, adopted by Tom when the boy was 2 years old, is a senior in high school and very self-sufficient. He'll be off to college in less than a year, so Tom's parenting years are basically over. Does he want to start all over again with 4 kids, ages 3 to 9? With all the talk of space and autonomy, I bravely assert that I am a package deal. If he isn't ready to commit to the kids, I'm out. Give me 24 hours, he says. I don't want to make this decision lightly. Tom comes back the next day with a yes. He's also found several houses he wants me to look at. We must get away from anything Brad has control over. He shows me his favorite one first, and as we step through the front door into the spacious family room, I remark, this is too big. We do not need all this space. He turns to me laughing. Have you seen how many kids we have? In less than 2 weeks, we've moved into that brand new spacious 2-story in a great neighborhood a few miles away. Tom is absolutely brimming with practical ideas and ways to solve everyday problems in the household. He talks with me about setting an intentional, supportive atmosphere for the kids. We keep the stereo tuned to a radio station that bills itself as positive and encouraging. We eat meals together around the table. He makes time every evening for all of us to pile on the couch and watch funny videos and lighthearted movies as a family. We hire a babysitter to help with the kids and the housework while I work part-time as a personal assistant for a woman who encourages and nurtures my newfound autonomy. We get a minivan so everyone can ride together in the same vehicle. The kids start relaxing and opening up. After a couple weeks, Gideon, now a 4th grader, comes home from school one day and remarks, Mom, you're never crying when I get home anymore. I like it when you're happy. A few days later, we are sharing a family meal with Luke, when Luke, age 5, casually comments, Mom, remember that one time when Papa, their nickname for Brad, took you in the bedroom with that big knife? I freeze like a deer in the headlights. Yeah, adds Hannah, age 7, matter-of-factly, we thought he was going to kill you. I rack my brain to think of which time they are referring to. There are far too many of these occurrences for me to know which one, and I just pray they don't remember any others. We talk about how I am happy and safe now, and I breathe a sigh of relief when the discussion shifts to a friend's upcoming birthday party. Tom helps me work out a 50-50 visitation plan with Brad to have the kids on alternating weeks. I'm sure Brad agrees just to avoid having to pay child support, but Tom reassures me that Karen wouldn't let anything bad happen to the kids. On the weeks we are alone, Tom and I stay up late into the night getting to know each other. We share our favorite music with each other, and he shows me videos of preachers that inspire him. I rub his feet while he listens to my stories. Brad never liked his feet rubbed, and since Tom works construction, his feet always hurt. It becomes our nightly ritual. I verbally process my past while digging out the knots in his feet. When I stumble upon a particularly painful memory, he reminds me to go easy. As our bodies detoxify from years of chronic stress and unhappiness, we both experience the movement of bizarre physical symptoms through our bodies, from flu-like to severe allergies, unexplained headaches, shooting pain, numbness, and tingling in various body parts. Not surprisingly, I never again have a bout of strep throat. All those years of poisoning my body have been cleansed out of my throat as I freely speak my truth. At Tom's prompting, I make the first doctor's appointment of my life and get diagnosed with chronic anxiety and depression. I began taking 2 different medications, my first experience with prescription drugs. Within a couple of weeks, my moods level off and I experience an improvement in my overall sense of well-being. After 3 months, the excruciating pain Tom has endured from years of plantar fasciitis is completely gone. Before we got together, he was getting injections straight into his heel every few months to manage the pain. Now he can stand up straight out of bed first thing in the morning with no pain. We began to attend a local non-denominational megachurch where we can get the kids some extra support and where we can blend in without being noticed. One Sunday morning during the worship service, I am crying my eyes out, asking God to show me what to do about the kids. I am worried about them being with Brad. They always return from his house acting agitated and distant. It takes most of the week for them to settle down and relax, and then it's time to go back. I still don't feel like I deserve to be their mom. So many years of failing them has left me feeling directionless and incapable. With hands raised and eyes closed, swept away by the lilting music, I pour my heart out to this new God figure I've only known for a few months. This gentler, more loving entity that forgives and renews. As I'm praying, a voice whispers in my ear, "You take care of those kids." My eyes fly open and I glance around in alarm to see who said that. Tom is lost in his own experience next to me, eyes closed, swaying to the music. I suddenly realize this is a message from God. It is the first tangible, positive moment of divine connection I have ever consciously experienced. Somehow, inexplicably, the creator of all the universe thinks I should be the one to raise my kids. How do you argue with that? After I explain my spiritual experience to Tom, he says it's time to put a plan in place to secure custody of the kids. Neither Brad nor I have filed any legal paperwork yet. I know I should be proactive. The first one to file sets the precedent, but I still fear breaking the God hates divorce rule. For now, Tom and I decide to take steps to clean up our image so we can ensure the best possible outcome. Without hesitation, and to my surprise, he informs me he will quit drinking. He loves tequila, and he has no doubt Karen will try to use that fact against us in the custody battle. We also decide that for appearances, it is probably best that we not be living together. We don't want a judge to think I'm slutty. Tom decides to temporarily move back to Kansas City, where he still has plenty of job connections from when he lived there previously. He can stay with friends for free and send every penny home to support us. Even though we talk every day on the phone, I miss Tom terribly. I try hard to maintain the positive atmosphere for the kids that seems so effortless with him around. My recovering mind and body prove no match for the task. I am chronically exhausted, lonely, and stressed out. After several weeks of being apart, I decide that we should be concerned not just with setting up our legal case for the best outcome, but also with doing what we can to please God so we can get his blessing on our union. My childhood programming swings into full effect as I reinstate the no sex before marriage boundary. Although Tom makes it clear that he disagrees with my premise, he is, not surprisingly, respectful of my wishes. After a month, and while the kids are at Brad's, I am finally able to make the 11-hour drive to see Tom. We meet up in a grocery store parking lot a couple of miles from where he's staying so I can follow him there and avoid getting lost. I can barely throw the van into park before I jump out of the door and throw myself in his arms. We are seconds into an epic kiss when I start thinking that the back seat of the minivan looks pretty inviting. Not normally one for sex in public places, I am relieved to remember that I thought to put on a pair of pantyhose this morning. This sheer layer of nylon is the only thing keeping me honest. With great effort, I push Tom to arm's length and remind him of our rule: no sex until marriage. We want God to bless us, don't we? He reminds me that this is not his rule. And he also reassures me that he will honor my rule because he loves me. Alone together again in his little basement bedroom later that night, we climb into bed. I am resolute, committed to the sanctity of marriage and redeeming the purity of our relationship. Tom wraps me up in his arms, and as I breathe in his sweet scent, I am overcome with passion. I freeze, frantically scanning my mind for any available source of willpower or resolve. Nothing. I want him. I need him. I don't know if I can do this. Why? I am at once confused, overwhelmed, shocked, and exquisitely aroused. The very core of who I know myself to be feels threatened. If there is one thing Anne-Lise is good at, it is controlling her sexual desires. I may be a failure at many other things, but this is my one forte. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration crosses my mind. Ask me to marry you, I demand. I was getting to that, he splutters. I have a ring picked out, and just ask me, I insist again. Okay, he concedes with a hint of defeat in his voice. Will you marry me? Yes, I reply even before he finishes. Now we can have sex. My flimsy reasoning requires little explanation in the moment. We are both ready to connect. The next morning, Tom has some questions. I can't explain why I changed my mind, but I don't regret it. I tell him that we just need to hide it from the kids so they don't grow up thinking it's okay to have sex before marriage. That will be easy while he's away. We'll figure something out when he returns. I also assure him that once we are married, I will never tell him no. It's part of the deal he gets when marrying me. Tom comes home to visit for the weekend about a month later. I make him go out on the couch early in the morning before the kids wake up, so it looks like he was there all night. I feel guilty, but I don't have a better idea. I need to connect with him. I need it. It feels good to desire sex and find it fulfilling. The nagging fear that I will later be punished by a vengeful God for breaking his rules is not enough to keep me from the sacred union I experience when Tom and I are together. In late August, the kids are spending the last week of summer at Brad's. I'm back up in Kansas City visiting Tom when I get a call from the kids' school. Ella will be starting preschool, Luke and Hannah are going into first and second grade respectively, and Gideon will be entering middle school. This is the only school the kids have ever attended, so I know the staff fairly well. The call is from the registrar, and I immediately worry that I've forgotten some necessary paperwork. No, she reassures me. She is just confused as to why I withdrew only 2 of my kids. There must be some mistake, I insist. I got everything in last week. We should be all good to go. No, comes the chilling reply. Gideon and Hannah have been unenrolled. I ask for more details, and she calls back 15 minutes later to let me know they've been transferred to a school district 30 miles away. It's the district where Brad lives. My worst fear has been realized. He's taken the kids from me. I'm 11 hours away with no legal recourse, terrified I will never see them again. I call Brad in a panic, trying desperately to measure my tone and avoid exacerbating the situation. He and Karen have decided they will take the 2 older children, and I will take the 2 younger ones. School has already started in their district, and Gideon and Hannah are doing well. I decide to hold my tongue for now. We confirm the pickup date and time that I will get Luke and Ella back, and I hang up the phone, crumpling to the ground like a discarded tissue. Tom calls Brad back and has a private conversation, during which he says something that prompts Brad to agree to return Hannah. Gideon will stay with him, he insists. 2 days later, I pick up my 3 youngest children. Gideon has not come along to the drop-off, so I don't even get to see him. I begin setting appointments with lawyers first thing in the morning. And that, dear reader, is the journey of 1,000 steps that answers the question our lawyer from chapter 1 asked. How did you get here? If this plot twist of a chapter has you reeling with uncertainty about how things are going to turn out, and especially if you're worried about whether I'm going to be able to adapt to this new, more supportive relationship, I encourage you to consider that there is probably a good reason the story caught your attention. If you'd like to discover what parts of your own story are most resonant and what gifts of healing they are ready to provide, please download the study guide for Chapter 8 at theuntherapist.com/Chapter 8. Now we move to Part 2, the Becoming. Chapter 9, Who Am I? Chapter Framework, Old Belief Before Untherapy. Who I am is wrong and broken. Because of this fact, I must work extra hard to cover my faults and appear normal to the outside world. Depression and anxiety are normal mental states and help me stay in line. I must live up to a higher standard than everyone else. I am excellent at loving and accepting others, but I require nothing in return. I need nothing beyond the knowledge that I am benefiting those who need me. The Untherapy perspective. Existence is evidence of worthiness. The fact that we are alive in this time and space is proof that we deserve to be here. We can choose to accept that who we truly are, thoughts, feelings, and desires, is who we were meant to be. By accepting ourselves, we align with our divine purpose and move toward the natural flow of life, which always seeks to support and encourage our growth and healing. Our unique combination of thought model, feeling type, life experiences, and true desires is perfectly optimized to support our best life. Our best efforts are always enough. Who we are is always enough. We are wired for connection. The more we understand about ourselves and others, the easier and more fulfilling all of our relationships become. Life is a flow of giving and receiving. We are only as good at giving as we are at receiving. And the quote for this chapter says, I define shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. And that is by Brene Brown. I meet with 9 more lawyers after Mr. Lech before I find the one I trust will be able to restore my son to me. Greta is a pit bull of a divorce attorney who specializes in representing victims of domestic violence. I meet her through the Abused Women's Shelter, where I have begun taking advantage of a free group and individual therapy sessions for which I am eligible. It is during a group session that I first hear the words, "You have the right to be safe in your own home." To be sure I understand, I raise my hand and ask, so it's really not true that every wife secretly gets beaten? Some of the other women have filed criminal charges against their partners. I am thankful that the authorities here trust my word and understand why I never reported Brad. Talk therapy is a slow process where I often feel small and stupid, but the role-playing exercises are helping me find my voice, and I'm slowly learning how to set boundaries. Because I am a client of the shelter, Greta charges me a special rate that is a fraction of her normal fee. A few days later, as we are working to draft the petition for sole custody that will require Brad to return Gideon, a sheriff shows up at my door to serve me divorce papers from Brad. I am both shocked and relieved. Now that Brad is initiated, I am off the hook with God. I didn't divorce him, so I am not culpable in God's eyes, I hope. Thankfully, Brad has not included any specific information on custody, so we still have full rights to ask the judge for whatever we want. It takes another 6 weeks and 2 hearings to get our ruling, but by mid-October, I accompany a local deputy to Gideon's school and bring him home. He is happy to see his siblings again, but I feel strange around him, not sure if I've done the right thing bringing him back. I can't ask him specifically, but I know he has been brainwashed against me, and even more so Tom, while he was gone. Greta's hard work and determination to protect me and my kids teaches me so much about my worth as a human being and my ability as a mother. She also reassures me that it's perfectly safe for Tom to return to our home. The judge will not look unfavorably at his presence in my life, and it will not negatively affect the outcome of our case. He moves back in February of 2006 after being in Kansas City for a whole year. Having him back in the house takes an enormous amount of pressure off me. Our peaceful, stable environment is once again effortless. I still feel guilty for having sex before marriage, so I hold out as often as I can. Tom never pushes the issue. I still insist on the early morning couch pretense to keep up appearances. Whenever I forego sex, I always reassure him that as soon as we are married, I will never again refuse him. Ella falls into the habit of rising early and cuddling with him as they wake up together. She has taken to him effortlessly. The other kids are torn. Gideon is tight-lipped, but Luke and Hannah tell me all about the bad things Brad says about Tom. Tom has been very clear with me that we must never defend ourselves or say anything in retribution. Greta agrees that this is an important boundary to maintain for the kids' sake. It is important to let the kids come to their own realizations. The truth will always come out, Tom insists. I spend a lot of time biting my tongue in the moment and crying on his shoulder. Gideon resists Tom's parenting, reminding him, "You're not my dad." Tom gently responds, "I know, Gideon, but I will always treat you like my own son. You can do whatever you want with that." It takes until May to finalize the divorce. Karen throws up roadblocks at every turn, later admitting she just wanted to make Tom's life miserable because she knew how much he cared about the kids. Apparently, the ease with which Tom moved on after the divorce was insulting to her diva mentality, so she wanted to hit him where it hurt. I am granted sole custody, and Brad gets visitation every other weekend. Greta makes sure to include a permanent injunction protecting me from ever having to speak to Brad again. She also asks the judge to waive the waiting period for remarriage since the whole process has taken the better part of 2 years. He grants the request, and mid-morning on May 12, 2006, I pick up the kids from school without prior notice to attend a simple justice of the peace ceremony. We couldn't let them know ahead of time for fear they would mention it to Brad and he would try to sabotage our plans. Now that we are married, Tom can wake up in the bed with me every morning. I channel my total woman training from 13 years before when I was entering my first marriage. I wait on Tom, quite literally, hand and foot. In my mind, it is time to pay back all the goodness he has showered on me. I busy myself being the uber wife I imagine his heart most desires. This makes him nervous, which is confusing for me. He is forever reminding me that he doesn't want me to do anything unless I want to do it. Oh, I definitely want to do all this and more, so much more. When he does get upset or overwhelmed in the natural course of everyday life, I beat myself up, disappointed in my failure to be enough for him. Tom dislikes my self-deprecating behavior the most. I don't know how to stop it, but he cannot tolerate it. I learned to hide it better, but it still spills out when I'm under extreme pressure. The kids start the new school year. Much to my delight, Tom attends their first parent-teacher conference with me, something Brad never did. Ella's kindergarten teacher declares that she has a round bottom and won't sit still. Ella is one of 35 kids being required to sit still for hours at a time and listen to a burned-out teacher who is 1 year from retirement. Luke is a second grader with debilitating anxiety. When he makes even a small mistake on his work, he disrupts class by crawling under a table and refusing to come out. Hannah, now in 3rd grade, has been caught stealing personal items from her friend's backpack and is struggling in remedial reading class. Gideon is excelling in 6th grade with advanced and honors classes, but he brings home 3 to 4 hours of homework every night, and his youthful spirit is being crushed under the stress of perfectionism. That night, Tom brings up the idea of homeschooling. Hot tears of shame spring up unchecked. I have always wanted to homeschool, but when I brought it up to Brad when the kids were just starting off, he laughed scornfully at me for thinking I could teach them when I was so stupid and such a bad mom. Tom is sure I would do great. His most compelling argument, besides my abundance of intelligence, is the teacher-student ratio of 1 to 4. Each of the kids is now one of 35 students in any given classroom. He argues that most of their problems would be resolved with more individualized attention. I know he's right, and I decide to trust his support and believe in my abilities. We withdraw the kids over the Thanksgiving holiday. The transition is hell for the first 2 weeks. We realize the siblings have only ever been around each other in the foggy, rushed mornings before getting on the bus and at the end of the day when their energy is spent. Once we settle into the relaxed pace of a full night's sleep, leisurely morning starts, and no homework, they become a close-knit peer group. Ella gets her bounce back. Luke relaxes into the idea of imperfect learning. Hannah's reading starts to improve, and Gideon acclimates to a drastically reduced stress level. My prescription for antidepressants runs out. I do not renew them. The following March, we take a family trip to Joplin, Missouri. Tom grew up here, and he wants me to meet the pastors of the church he grew up in. In his words, they are the reason for everything good about me. When his parents divorced, they personally provided love and support that were critical to Tom's development. We spend a long weekend with them, eating scrumptious food around an enormous dining table, being warmly received by their little congregation of friendly faces, and touring the beautiful sights of the Ozark Mountains. I've lived in Central Texas for most of my life, so seeing springtime bursting forth in an array of soft pinks, lacy whites, brilliant yellows, and deep greens is intoxicating. I fall in love with everything about this place. I want to live here. Tom is hesitant to leave behind a thriving construction business, but he would do anything to make me happy, and he's an expert on fresh starts. The kids are flexible now that we homeschool, and the pastors just so happen to have a large renovation project underway on the old church building he knew so well when he was young. We are residents in Missouri in less than 2 months, staying with the pastors initially while Tom works full-time on their church project. I take the kids to the local public library every day for lessons, and we picnic in a nearby park for lunch and playtime. Brad sues me for custody since the divorce decree prohibits me from moving more than 1 county away. At the hearing, Karen takes the stand with an incoherent string of accusations against Tom. He's an irresponsible father and terrible provider. He has those kids sleeping on the floor in a church building. After 7 minutes, the judge cuts her off. Tom is not on trial here, he explains, as he asks her to step down. For only the second time in his 10 years on the bench, this judge in the most conservative district in Texas signs off on our out-of-state move. With the help of Gideon's testimony, Brad is ordered to take parenting and anger management classes and visit the kids in Joplin on his assigned weekends. He never once makes the trip to see them. As spring gives way to summer, and then summer to fall, the 100-year-old towering oaks rustle majestically in the breeze above us. I revel in the novel beauty of the changing seasons. The kids make friends at church, and we participate in a local homeschool co-op for field trips, sports, and other learning opportunities. I redouble my efforts to be the perfect wife for Tom, adding new rules I've picked up from my exposure to the non-denominational Christian belief system we are now a part of. As I am adjusting to this new way of life, so opposite of anything I knew just a few short years ago, one night I bolt upright out of a disturbing dream. I glance at the bedside clock, 3:04 a.m. My ragged breathing wakes Tom, and through a sleepy haze, he reaches over. You okay, babe? Still rattled by the terrifying images of the nonsensical nightmare, I struggle for words. Did you know I was so messed up when you married me? He gathers me in his arms and gently kisses my forehead. I knew you were struggling. I don't think of it that way. You're perfect. I love you no matter what. Go back to sleep. I lie there the rest of the night, wrestling with the idea that I haven't earned this. Tears flow as I grapple with the realization that he has to navigate all my problems, and he deserves so much better. He knew I was a mess, and he loves me anyway. I cannot wrap my head around it. Is this the unconditional love everyone keeps attributing to proper Jesus followers? It makes me feel awful. I could never love like that. After 5 months of living with the pastors, their church building renovation project is complete, and we find a home in a neighboring town. Tom and I are soon asked to be the young adult pastors for the church. So we take on the spiritual care of a dozen members aged 19 to 29. To give our small group of misfits a purpose and a challenge, we begin a prayer ministry which quickly catches the attention of the entire congregation. Meanwhile, I have become obsessed with personality tests. Tom is forever finding new assessments that promise to illuminate various aspects of one's psyche, and he loves taking them and sharing them with me. I find this practice wholly frustrating. Whereas he eagerly consumes the results, applying what fits and casually dismissing what isn't helpful, I get stuck every time, over and over, regardless of which theories we research. I find myself stuffed into a box that doesn't properly fit, mislabeled, and misunderstood. What seems to be a fun little game for Tom has become for me a torturous reminder of how broken I really am. Who even am I? It becomes abundantly clear that there is a fundamental difference between us. Tom knows, likes, and trusts himself. I cannot say the same for myself. As I read through the results of the latest assessment, my heart strains to reconcile the labels it is handing me against a deeper truth buried just out of reach. This particular test result says I'm the helper. I'm supposed to be naturally gifted at serving and supporting. This is the third time I've taken this particular assessment in the past 2 months, and this is yet another different result. Tom agrees that I am a helper and seems unfazed by the implications. I go blind with rage at the visual of myself chained to the kitchen sink, scrubbing dishes while the rest of the family happily relaxes in an unreachable part of the house that is filled with comfort and happiness. I swallow hard, trembling with the effort to appear calm and reasonable. I am not okay, but I have no idea what to do about it. After many such fiascos, I stumble into the concept of a simple 4-bucket model based on the natural way we experience our feelings. As we share this model with everyone we know, it gradually simplifies, perfects, and evolves into a concept I call forces of nature. Each person fits into one of 4 categories: wind, fire, ocean, or mountain, based on their core feeling type. Your force is the perfect fit for you, and it empowers you to achieve what you most desire in your life. The limitations of only 4 choices seems a bit too overly simplified, but it is flexible enough to allow room for me to breathe without having a meltdown. Tom loves being a wind with all the free-flowing, light-changeable energy it brings. That must be what gives him the ability to tolerate my crazy. I instantly pick up the fire label since I am a doer who is always creating productive change with heated intensity. Gideon is an ocean, which opens my mind for the first time to the inherent differences between us. His methodical, cyclical perfectionism finally makes sense to me. My connection with my firstborn improves exponentially as I began taking time to listen and create space for him to verbally process the depths of his weighty emotions. I decide that the rest of the kids are wins. Their playful light energy lends additional fun and flow to the household. Over the next 2 years, the synergistic energy Tom and I apply to every undertaking seems to capture the imagination of all we encounter. Our primary focus is still on ministry and based largely on our concerted efforts. The congregation has more than doubled in size. Before long, rumors stir from the top that Tom is trying to take over the church. Repeatedly, Tom exposes the false accusations directly to the head pastor, who has evolved from the mentor of his childhood into a close friend. But this man proves to be no match for the pressures of the small family dynamic within the religious construct. He crumbles under the fears and demands of the rest of his family, and after months of waffling, he finally kicks Tom and the rest of us out of the church. Before we were unceremoniously banned from this church, we had been busy determining everyone's force of nature, using it as a tool to help improve relationships and increase emotional intelligence. As we grapple with the betrayal, I can construct a narrative that explains what happened in terms of the natural feeling type of each key player. The head pastor was a mountain, and as such would do anything to maintain personal structural integrity. He internalized conflict and sought to maintain external peace at all costs. He was drawn to Tom's windy, non-judgmental nature as a rare gift for one in a pastoral position. As Tom became a trusted friend and confidant, it created jealousy in the rest of his family. His wife was an ocean whose deep, cyclical, methodical processing resisted the change brought by Tom's lighthearted flow. Their son, who was in charge of the music and youth ministries, was a fire. His temper flared as he tried to control the players in his future empire. His frustration at the perceived loss of power caused him to join forces with his mom and launch a smear campaign that resulted in our family being ousted. The sudden shock of being cut off from all our spiritual and social connections in one fell swoop leaves a lasting wound. Tom experiences a deep crisis of faith that takes years to resolve. He eventually refers to it as the best and worst thing that needed to happen. He also decides, after having set aside alcohol for over 2 years, that tequila is going to be a part of his life again. Despite the emotional carnage of this entire fiasco, I am comforted to know that each person who caused us pain was not doing it with evil intention. I clearly see how they were acting from a place of fear and personal triggers that devolved into a perfect storm based on their own lack of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. I become convinced that understanding human behavior and teaching emotional literacy is my one true calling. I'm finally ready to introduce Tom to my parents. We visit mom and dad and all my siblings back in Texas for Thanksgiving. It has taken over 3 years for me to be ready to deal with my shame and the potential backlash I might face from all the hurt I caused when I went back to Brad. I'm also nervous because Tom isn't part of the religion I grew up in. Even though I haven't been a part of that belief system for years now, I am afraid Dad is going to reject Tom because he isn't one of the chosen ones. At a post-meal bonfire, Tom drinks homemade wine with Mom and puts his arm around my not-so-cuddly father. As I sit chatting with one of my sisters, I hear Tom's voice booming from the other side of the idyllic holiday scene. I love your daughter with all my heart. I promise I will always protect her and care for her. She is the most incredible and special woman in the world. I smile self-consciously with secret delight. Dad does not have anything bad to say about Tom. As I continue to homeschool the kids, now ages 10, 12, 14, and 16, I start helping Tom paint on the weekends. One particularly warm Sunday afternoon in May, we run out of paint on a job in a neighboring town. Tom has been painting for 30 years by this point. He never runs out of paint. Begrudgingly, and because the paint store closest to the job is located on the other side of town, I call in the order ahead of time. As luck would have it, I've called the wrong location and we end up trekking all the way back to the store nearest our house. As we are paying, the tornado siren located just 2 blocks away drowns our attempts at lighthearted small talk. Since it's on the way back to the job, Tom and I swing by the house for a quick check on the kids before we head back to finish painting. As we pull up in front of the house, the kids are milling around on the front porch, looking up at the strange green clouds swirling overhead. The tornado siren blares a second warning. Tom leaps out of the truck and sprints to the porch, yelling, "Get inside, get inside." He orders us into the middle bathroom. We pile into the bathtub, Ella climbing onto my lap, and the rest of the kids holding on to each other. Tom drags a mattress from the bedroom and leans it over the top of us with the weight of his body. Within seconds, the tornado bears down on us. Tom's booming voice reaches through the mattresses as he prays out loud for safety and mercy. I instinctively repeat his words, rhythmically chanting, "Jesus save us, Jesus save us." The kids are crying and chanting along with us. The roar of 100 freight trains overwhelms my senses as power lines explode with sizzling cracks coupled with impressive sprays of fireworks. The percussive shatter of glass punctuates the mayhem like an infinite torrent of crashing cymbals. So much glass. The house trembles, and even though Tom has us covered by the mattresses, I feel Ella's body being sucked up out of my arms. I grip her more tightly, determined that if the storm takes her, it will have to take me too. My eardrums throb with excruciating pressure, and seconds later, the whole middle of the roof breaks free and blows away. A strange green pallor streams in from the gaping hole above, and as suddenly as it began, all is silent. We are silent too. Tom removes the mattress. We are all in shock. Gideon tells us he saw a massive angel stretching its wings over us in protection the whole time. The little ones sob. I check them for scratches or bruises. Nothing. The bathroom window is the only one still intact. We pick our way through what is left of the rest of the house, a blender of broken furniture, twisted fabric, and shattered glass. At length, we manage to dig out shoes for everyone. As we open the front door and look out over our neighborhood, we are greeted by a sharp hissing sound and the smell of natural gas. A mixture of insulation, twigs, dirt, and other debris covers everything. Naked trees, stripped of all their greenery, flap their few remaining broken branches in the heavy air. And this is our view, as far as the eye can see. The Joplin tornado of 2011 was an EF5 that still stands as the 7th deadliest and #1 most costly in recorded history. I have been teaching forces of nature for over a year now. And one thing I know is that fires feel the best when they are excelling under pressure. This is my chance to shine. As Tom begins planning where we can take shelter for the night, he instructs me to pack up our valuables. I go back in the house and decide to start with the computer. I can't. Shock and overwhelm collapse my body to the floor where I heave myself into the filth and rubble. There is no fire left in me. I don't know who I am. Even though our insurance company can put us up at a hotel, there is none available with running water, so we decide to stay at our office on Main Street, a few blocks from the disaster zone. For 6 months, we live in that storefront, sleeping on the floor and eating out of an electric skillet. We rig a shower by attaching a garden hose with a spray attachment to the bathroom sink, and we pile our clothes on plastic tables in place of closets. At Tom's prompting, to help reduce the pressure on me, we enroll the kids in an online homeschool program that includes teaching and tutoring. Nothing about this crisis has brought out even a shred of the productive problem solving I thought to be my nature. I finally come to terms with the fact that I am not a fire. I try on ocean and even mountain for size. I'm not methodical or patient enough to be an ocean, and I'm way too extroverted and excitable to be a mountain. The inevitable realization creeps over me like a death sentence. I am a wind. Tom reminds me that discovering more truth about myself should set me free, not bog me down. It just feels so dangerous. It is not safe to be a wind. They are too silly. I consider my husband and my kids, my friends, and other acquaintances. I know a lot of winds, and I love them all. Why couldn't I be one too? Then I realized something. My dad is a mountain. He likes to feel fixed and stable. He craves internal focus and quiet space for introspection. If I am a wind, I probably drove him crazy with all my wild, open-hearted lack of predictability growing up. Don't be silly, his old admonition haunts me like a bad dream. Only now I finally understand why. Maybe it is safe to be a wind. Maybe he just didn't know how to handle it. I realize my mom is also a wind. My frustration at her character becomes clear as day. She naturally wants to flow light and free. She chooses to subordinate her nature to her husband to fit the dynamic they have established. It's what I tried to do all those years as a child, and then even more completely in my marriage to Brad. Oh, and Brad must be an ocean. The depth of his processing kept me in a continual state of drowning. I never let myself come up for air, and I never used my true lighthearted, non-judgmental, windy nature for the benefit of the relationship. As I allow myself to play with the idea of choosing light, flexible, easy, flowing options for my life, it's like I'm waking up out of a 37-year sleep. Maybe life doesn't have to be so hard. Maybe I can enjoy my natural windy way of feeling. And maybe someday I can even learn to like who I naturally am. If you've ever struggled with shame, a sense of being bad or wrong because of who you inherently are, the Chapter 9 study guide was made for you. Having a simple and concrete way to understand your natural characteristics and release self-judgment can change everything. Download it now at theuntherapist.com/chapter 9.